Thank you, Sue. So, for those of you who do not know our speaker for the day, his name is Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. He has been a lifelong learner with a passion for self-development, personal transformation, transmutation, and transfiguration. He lives his bliss as a teacher, American Sign Language interpreter, and performing artist, visual artist, author, martial artist, mentor, father, grandfather, and so much more. His personal mission is to live, move, and be an active, and that's an acronym, member of society who serves to educate, elucidate, sorry, I missed a letter, and emancipate people and communities to awaken and empower themselves. Through his service and through the transformative teachings, technologies, and practices of New Thought, these people and communities recognize, realize, and materialize their full divine potential. Active, authentic, compassionate, transparent, inspired, vibrant, and empowered. As a licensed CSL minister, he currently serves as the senior minister of the Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Baltimore, recently appointed Diversity and Inclusion Commissioner, and is part of the steering committee for the newly forming World Ministry of Prayer. I give you Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson.
This better be good, Monty.
And just for that, it shall not be. And make sure. So let's start. Hello, everybody.
Hey!
You're supposed to match my energy.
No.
Hello, everybody. John said no.
On there.
Oh, so how's it going today?
Great.
So, there's so many things running through my mind right now of where I want to start. And so I feel like I have to start with where Tracy and I went yesterday. So yesterday we went to go see Harriet, right? And have you ever seen a trailer for a coming movie and the trailer brings tears to your eyes? Okay, so for those who know what I'm talking about, while we were sitting there waiting for Harriet to start, you know, the movie trailers are coming. And then one that I have been waiting for a long, long time pops up on the screen. And it stars Tom Hanks. Mr. Rogers. Seeing Tom Hanks portray Mr. Rogers, knowing I'm from Pittsburgh, so I have a very, very deep connection to Mr. Rogers. And what Sue was talking about, this idea of someone embodying power that shows up as kindness and compassion and gentleness. Like Fred Rogers, and having met him personally, Fred Rogers is one of the most powerful humans I have ever met in my entire life. So I'm sitting there watching the trailer in tears. Like, I'm just so excited. So, and then Harriet starts. Like, oh! So talking about how power shows up, which is sort of where we're talking about today, because first Sunday of the month we talked about what? For those who were here, do you remember what we talked about the first Sunday of the month? No. I'm gonna start quizzing y'all. Spiritual. I was like, I'm gonna check my journal. So we talked about leadership and spirituality as it affects, as it leads, as it guides leadership. And then last Sunday we talked about Karate Kid was on the screen, wax on, wax off. Kung Fu, yes, we talked about Kung Fu. And Kung Fu meaning diligent, disciplined work. It's not just about kicks and blocks, but it's about how we embody that which we are mastering. And so we talked about ourselves and self-mastery. So this week we're still talking about leadership, and what it means to be the leader of your own life, the leader of how you show up in the world. But we're talking about it today from the position of what it means to lead morally, to be a leader with morals. Now, it's said that ethics is determined by society. Like, however we are behaving ethically is based upon the societal way it shows up. But morals tend to be how we individually choose to enact that. So, got a question for you though. Who makes up society? We do. So one would think that if we, the individuals who have morals, make up society, then those morals and the ethics would match. But they don't always match. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. But we're going to put that in the parking lot for a moment, because I want to backtrack a little bit and talk about this idea of the world, life, experience being a mirror of who and what we are. Now, I'm sure you've heard it said that, the world mirrors back to you what you. And to a certain degree, this is accurate. However, and I asked you this last week, I think it was last week, is there such a thing as terrorism in the world?
Yeah.
Yes.
So then that means every time you turn on the news and you hear about terrorism, it's mirroring back to you, the terrorism that you have, the terrorist that you are? I mean, because that's the concept. When people say, the world mirrors back to you what you give to the world. So if you're seeing out there, it's like what we used to say as children. If you spot it, you got it. If you smelt it, you dealt it. It's that idea of if you can see it, then it's because it must be in you. And on one level, yes, there is a little bit of validity to that. However, it is very easy to slip down that slippery slope of metaphysical malpractice and bypass, where it's now the blame and shame game. What's more accurate is to say what you see, but how do you see it? The how you see it is what's in you. Meaning, do you see it and you judge that or them? That's in you. But when we have experiences in life, it's what it is. Like in the Tao, it simply is what it is. It's like the story of the Taoist farmer who says, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's good, maybe it's not. It just is. Well, your son broke his leg. That's so horrible. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Oh, wow, he got spared from going to war because he broke his leg. That's so great. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. It simply is. And how we choose to interpret that is us. So when we talk about this idea that in Proverbs 27:19 it says, as water reflects the face, so one's life reflects the heart. What in your life is showing the reflection of your heart? Everything. In your individual life, if you look at all of the aspects, look at all of the various compartments, if your life was a mansion, a house, and every room represented something specific, in many ways our homes do. The living room is the room where we entertain and we live. And the dining room is the room where we dine. It's where we fellowship and eat. And the bathroom is where we release and bathe, and each room has a function. Well, I mean, for some, the living room is storage, but you get my point. Each room technically has a function. Well, what if our lives in general, that we imagine that each of these compartments in this house that make up our lives has a purpose? There's family, and then there's extended family. So close family, extended family, family of choice. Friends, close friends, acquaintances, job, hobbies, everything has, and we really step back and look at it. Is the house well kept? Is it well maintained? Are the shutters painted? Does the roof leak? How are we taking care of, how are we stewarding this thing we call our lives? Especially because what that life is a reflection of our heart. So if we look at our lives as a reflection of our heart, how many of us have heart disease? How many of us have a heart that's not really, pumping love and compassion and kindness? Because if we look at those rooms in our lives, we don't see compassion, kindness, gentleness, benevolence. We see anger, hate, judgment, jealousy, envy, bitterness, grudges. They say, forgive and forget. I will never forgive. Well, you know what? I might forgive you, but I will never forget. Really? You do know that that's like pouring gasoline in your own home, lighting a match, and expecting his house to burn down. You realize that, right? Like holding on to that. It's not the healthiest thing to do. Yes, Robin.
In one of my classes, I just have to share this. In one of my classes, we had to write a spiritual mind treatment, and I decided to write it for the people in ISIS.
Right.
It took me 2 months, okay? I'm not going to lie.
I got you.
But my perspective of those people now are that they are somebody's brother, father, uncle, cousin, who are experiencing a lot of pain and confusion.
Right, because the idea is hurt people hurt people. We already know this. Hurt people, and healed people heal people. Healed people help people. The only way you could convince me that someone who is loving, who is compassionate, and is kind, would strip a bomb to themselves to blow up. Okay, wait, because I know that there are Buddhists who have set themselves on fire to protest things like war. I got that, I understand that. I understand the concept. But what you're doing is strapping a bomb to yourself to hurt people. So let us imagine for a moment the number of young men right now, and young women right now, being radicalized, meaning somewhere their heart is already vulnerable. The energy of their heart is already vulnerable to being manipulated and being spun in a way where now the enemy and othering and hatred and jealousy and judgment and death become the result. So the idea for what we're talking about is, but here we are with this spiritual technology, this spiritual teaching, this philosophy, science of mind and spirit, that we know that when we anchor our thoughts to what we feel and then act upon the alignment of that, then life changes. Conditions change. And it starts with, how are we in our minds conditionalizing, making the conditions. Yeah, I'm still making up words. Ever since that one time I had a slip of the tongue and Sue took the word and ran with it and used it in the closing benediction. I'm making up words ever since now. I've raised the etymology of creation.
I've forgotten the word.
What was the word?
Entwined.
Wow, okay, thank you, Sue. So, everyone in our minds, we have things that we see as the condition. We talk about, well, what's the condition of the basement right now? What's the condition of our car? What condition is that jacket that I bought last year? Do I need a new jacket? So condition, that word, it's heavily in there. And so if we're going to change the conditions of the world, the stuff out there, then it has to start in here. It has to start with who we are and where we are inside. So what does your life say about your heart? And what does your heart say about how you are leading from it? Or are you leading from the hurt rather than the heart, as Brené Brown says? Are you leading from the hurt? How many of us, and if we aren't, because I know, just between us, because we're the enlightened folks, but we know people who are leading from the hurt. If we want a world that works for all, as our vision statement says, then each of us is called to do the work to step into a more heart-centered level of leadership. So it goes into that idea of morals, though. If I were to ask you, what's good and what's bad? And that's almost a trick question, because in our philosophy, there is nothing that's bad. Right? So the idea is, if we're talking about ISIS, since Robin brought them up, are they bad? We would say yes. But what if they're not bad? Like spiritually. Morally, what they're doing may be spiritually bankrupt, morally bankrupt, emotionally bankrupt. Yes, in terms of that. But when we get into that whole wrestling match of good or bad, it's easier to judge. It's easy to judge.
And it's also based on their moral compass.
Ding, ding, ding. Right? So how do we bring this back to us? Identifying within ourselves, what are our morals? What are our values? What are those pillars that we operate from? How are we moving through the world, determining, for example, is stealing wrong? Is it bad to steal? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Don't you just love duality? Because it has to be either or. Stealing is bad.
Yes.
No.
But what if you have to do it to survive?
Bad versus necessary.
See, now we're into the Rubik's Cube. Yes. See, so it always comes back to, how am I interpreting this entire concept? Because if I'm jumbled in my intellect and in my emotions, if I'm jumbled with, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And well, what's today? Is it Monday? Well, my boss isn't going to miss these paper clips. You know how many paper clips we have in the storage room down the hall? A couple of hundred paper clips. They're not even going to know they're missing. And I know I'm not supposed to use the copier for my own personal use, but there's 7,000 reams of paper. They're not going to miss 50 sheets, etc., etc. For some, that's theft. For some, it's part of service. So the idea comes back to, and I have no judgment about any of it. What I'm saying is, we have to be very clear, because we do things and subconsciously we are judging ourselves. We may not verbalize it, we may not say it, but somewhere down there, as we're making copies, somewhere down there, we know, because we've all seen Bugs Bunny when they had the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder. Somewhere down there, we're like, what are you doing? He's making copies. Why are you stealing this paper? It's not stealing. Yes, it is. It's not. We both yelling nil, right? We get into this arguing match, but we don't even know what's happening. Subconsciously, there's this thing going on. There's this discord, disharmony, disarray happening in our heart space, in our heart chakra. And then, of course, if that's what's going on, what do we say? What if we say that life is the reflection of our heart? So clearly, if I have discord, disharmony, disarray happening within me, then it's easier for me to look outside and see it everywhere else. It's easy for me to not know, which way am I supposed to be going? Which way is the right way versus the wrong way? Well, what if there is no quote-unquote wrong way? There is only a way. And what if it's by our own determining that it makes it not right or wrong, but effective or not effective? It makes it more life-affirming or less life-affirming. But there is only one life. That life is God's life. That life is everything, everywhere, always, eternally. And that life is our life right now. We can choose to deny it, we can choose to ignore it, we can choose to suppress it, just like electricity. We can choose to turn it off in this room, but we can't turn electricity off. Electricity is going to exist. I would love to see somebody run outside the next time there's a thunderstorm and say, lightning, no! No lightning! You will, no! Bad lightning, no! Like, I would love to see one of us run outside and try to turn electricity off.
I'll do it.
See what I see? Now you understand. Messing with me. Right, but we know that we cannot do that. But how many of us sit in darkness and curse the darkness rather than turning on the light, rather than lifting the shades and opening the curtains? So it comes down to, how are we assessing? Anybody know this story from Greek mythology? Narcissus. You know what happened to him?
He fell in love with his own image.
Fell in love with his own image. And fell in. Like, oh, you are so beautiful. But how many of us fall in love with the image of wealth to the degree that we think it's one thing and it's not, and we drown ourselves? How many of us fall in love with the image of love, but it's not really love, but because we think it's love, and we drown ourselves because we're chasing after this idea of something? How many of us, Shakespeare said, ignorance is bliss. Where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise. Where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise. So if we look at our lives, where do we, because this is ignorance, this is seeing the reflection and thinking that, and believing it's something that it's not. And then letting what we believe that it is affect the behavior, and the behavior has a consequence. And for him, the consequence is death. When do we actualize our spiritual practice enough that we are willing to stand on a bridge like Harriet Tubman did in the movie and say, free or die? And for me, for where we are, I tweak that. Die and free. Meaning, when we die to these old concepts, when we let these old paradigms of what we think power is, what we think love is. Holmes says that law does it, and love makes the way. Right? Love enables this to happen, and law builds it. But love is the guiding principle. That means love is not this syrupy, weak, blah, 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 namby-pamby. It's the interpreter in me, I'm sorry, son. There's this thing, though, but when do we let that stuff die to step into the actual power of who and what we are? Because it's not easy. It is so simple, however, but to do it is not easy. It's far easier to go through life like this. What do you notice, for those who are able to see it?
No reflection in the mirror.
He has no reflection. This is from an old vampire film. Now, do we remember why vampires were said to have no reflection? Because they have no soul. So soul, metaphysically looking at this, as Ray tends to do with everything, metaphysically, this is saying that this woman is having a conversation with a man who is not in tune with, who has no idea of what his beingness is. He has no idea what his soul is. He has no soul to live from. He has denied it, ignored it, suppressed it so long because his job, what he sees as his life givingness is sucking the life out of others. Now, how many of us know people who do that? How many of us have siblings, relatives, employers, employees? How many of us know political leaders or teachers or principals who? How many of us have neighbors that? How many know that the store clerk, like how many people do we cross on any given day that we know, we can sense, we can feel? And yet, if we are going to step into this new level of leadership that is led by our morals, then what we are called to do is see them as whole, perfect, and complete, even when they don't know that for themselves. We are called to pray from a consciousness that knows rather than speak from a consciousness that blah, 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 blah. Speak from the wealth or speak from the poverty. Which one are we going to choose to do? Speak from love and kindness, compassion, or from othering and hate and judgment. Because it's very easy to go here. Like the energy that causes us to go into the road most traveled is easy. But the energy that calls us to take the high road, the energy that calls us to say, oh, what did she just call me? Oh, yes, Spirit loves me. I know, right foot. I know you want to do a side kick right now, but that's not what we're going to do. We're going to treat and we're going to move our feet, not kick with them. Like the spirit of love and compassion must well up in us so much that we are willing to. Now, in the Bible, it talked about turning the other cheek. If someone slaps you on the left cheek, turn and offer you. Yeah, I got you. But a whole bunch of people have used that to encourage victimization. And what I'm saying is, turn the other cheek, meaning, there's also, it says in Proverbs, I raise my gaze to the hills from whence my help comes. Turning the other cheek means change the channel. It means turn the manner in which we are judging and projecting and vibrating at this low energy, low level vengeance mode. Change that, shift that, turn that cheek to another level of being, so that if you do have to defend yourself, meaning, suppose, how many people in here have either been police officers or you know someone who is or has been? Okay. Police officers are going to have to deal with some pretty things at times. But if you are a police officer who has this thing called moral leadership, it is the compass by which your life is driven. You have integrity that is governed by your spiritual practices of love, compassion, and kindness, and true power, not how the world deems power, but true power. Then when you run into someone who is a shoplifter, when you run into someone who is showing up as a car thief, or when you're showing up to someone who is a mass murderer, you are still able to see them and treat them in a manner that is humane, rather than go down the slippery slope of every criminal deserves to be beaten and tortured and hurt and harmed. Because that system creates a system of penitentiaries that has men and women on death row who are innocent, and yet we are still willing to, simply for the sake of law. But they're innocent. Yeah, but they confess. But when someone is leading from moral leadership, then you're not going to feel the need to coerce a confession. You're not going to feel the need to beat the child to get the child to submit. Because I don't know about you, but my parents beat the living out of me multiple times for a variety of things. Some things that I didn't do. They were my brother, but I still took the beating for it. And it's because they were operating from their hurt. But see, the thing is, when we actually anchor into this idea of what it means to move from the heart chakra, what it means to move from love and compassion, what it really means to like anchor into that, then we're able to understand that love, peace, harmony, delight, understanding, fellowship, clarity, purity, unity, compassion, kindness, and forgiveness. The heart chakra, because it is the 12-petal lotus, each of the 12 petals represents one of those. When we are living from the energy of the heart, then we delight. We live a life of peace and harmony and love and understanding. It becomes what we embody. And if it's what we embody, then it's how we lead our lives. We set the tone. We are the examples. If we're willing to. Because it's not easy to walk out of here where right now we have amazing music, an amazing prayer, an amazing team of Seva volunteers who do stuff, an amazing beloved community. Here, we're safe. We love one another, for the most part. Well, we love one another. We like each other, for the most part. But here, we are family. When we walk out of here,
We're still paid.
yes, however, the people out there don't see my brown skin as someone who is part of their family. So how I have to respond is mine to do. It's not theirs. Until we shift the consciousness, till we turn the cheek of the consciousness in the country. But that will never happen if I only see them as the racist, the homophobe, the Islamophobe, the sexist, the ageist, the ableist. If that's all I can see, then my 12 petals have yet to bloom. It's still a bud, but it needs to be nurtured and cared for so that it blossoms, so that the chakra opens, so that the petals open, so that I can then move from this energy that says the same thing Spirit says, yes. Yes, I respect myself. Yes, I love. Yes, I am loved. Yes, I am grateful. I am kind. I am pure. In balance. I live in balance. I am grateful. I respect myself. I am kind. I accept things as they are. I am that I am. Because until we muster up that power to boldly go, yeah, Jim, go in there, to boldly go where we may not have gone before, but to boldly go where we want to go, a world that works for all. We've never done that before. As a planet, a world that works. We've had communities that work. We've had continents at various points. We've had, that work. But a world? Not yet. But if we want to boldly go there and demonstrate this so that those folks on Neptebular or other dimensions or whatever, so that they see us as the evolved beings that we are, that know our power, know who and what we are, then it takes us getting really grounded, really bold, and really brave. And Holmes said in Ideas of Power, the only God that any of us will ever know is the God that we embody. There is no God outside of us to get to know. There is no God on clouds in heaven. There is no God there. The only God that we will get to know intimately is the God that we embody. And as we embody it, that shows up in the world. I see Sue and I see God. I see Michael and I see God. I see Doug's parents and I see God. I see Doug and I see God. Right? When we embody it, then we have no choice but to go out into the world knowing that that's who we see and what we see, because it's what we are. And the world reflects back to us what our heart sends to it. Let's pray. Anchoring into this breath. Recognizing that every individual in this room is that which Spirit is, incarnating itself, individualized, a power point, a point of power of God. God being a circle whose circumference is nowhere, whose center is everywhere, then every single individual in this room is the center of that which we call God. And knowing that in this room we are all breathing and being breathed by Spirit, I anchor into this prayer and speak what I know. God in me, as me, is me. That which love is me. That which joy is me. That which kindness and compassion is me. And what is true for me, because it must be true for all of God, is true for everyone in this room. The very power and presence, the very life essence of what love is, leads my thoughts, leads my actions, leads my words, leads my feelings. It leads my life because it is all that there is, and I surrender and allow it to do what it does as love made flesh. Kindness given voice, compassion acting through these hands. Knowing that that which God is all there is, and knowing that every attribute of it must be what I am and what everyone in this room is. It is with gratitude, it is with thanksgiving, it is with joy and appreciation that I place these words into the law. The law always saying yes. Even now, yes, yes, I am kind. I am that I am. Yes, I am compassionate. And not just compassionate, but yes, I am compassion in human form. I am kindness in human form. I am joy personified. And knowing that that which God is right here and right now, breathing itself in, through, and as everyone in this room, and knowing that in gratitude I have surrendered this to the law, and knowing that in the mind of God it already exists, fully formed and fully functioning, I know it is already done. It is already so. And knowing that it is done, knowing that it is so, knowing that right here and right now in the mind of God, the world that works for all already works. It already is. And simply breathing that awareness and knowing that my part in this now manifests. What is mine to do as a morally conscious leader, one who has mastered and is mastering various aspects of myself, one who is leading by Spirit. I simply allow it to be. And together we as a beloved community declare this for ourselves individually, and declare it for ourselves collectively, and declare it for this world as a world that works for all. Together we anchor this by saying, and so it is. Amen.